On this Friday night, Alberta's contentious pipeline proposal closer to reality. The pact between the province and Ottawa.
I think that we have a pretty good deal.
The politics involved and the BC backlash. Landmark decision, what a new ruling from Canada's top court means for victims of intimate partner violence. Dangerous mission. The Canadian team's detonating mines underwater. Plus, Habs fever heats up.
We're feeling good. We're very great.
Enthusiasm mounts for the only Canadian team now vying for the Stanley Cup.
Global National. Reporting tonight, Colleen Christie.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. The pathway to a new oil pipeline from Alberta to the BC coast is much clearer tonight. Prime Minister Mark Carney and Alberta Premier Danielle Smith signed a deal today setting a new carbon price for the province and allowing Alberta to proceed as a joint proponent, with a proposal coming as early as Canada Day and construction as soon as next year.
We've removed barriers that were holding back investment, like the clean electricity regulations and the proposed oil and gas emissions cap, and we've reached key agreements with the federal government.
We're building trust of investors, that Alberta and Canada are reliable and attractive destinations where opportunities are plentiful.
Environmental groups, the BC government, and some Indigenous leaders are opposed to the new pipeline. We'll get to that in a moment, but we begin with Mackenzie Gray and the details of what was agreed to today.
A new oil pipeline just got a whole lot closer.
A low-carbon oil pipeline that bolsters our independence. Building big, building fast, building bold again.
That building could be coming soon, with Ottawa promising to designate a pipeline to the BC coast as in the national interest by this October. Construction could get underway as early as September of next year, with Alberta hoping for completion by 2033.
At the moment, I think that we have a pretty good deal that we're going to be able to celebrate it.
But Danielle Smith said she had to give to get, chiefly increasing Alberta's industrial carbon tax from $95 a tonne this year to $130 by 2040. But that's below the previously federally mandated price of $170.
Saving Alberta's industry partners approximately $250 billion in compliance costs.
Savings that other provinces can now expect as well, with Carney promising he'll lower the industrial carbon tax to the Alberta level for the rest of the country. Despite that and a potential million-barrel-a-day oil pipeline, the Prime Minister billed this announcement as a good day for the environment.
I've been an environmentalist, my career, UN Special Envoy on climate action. Those last two words, climate action. This is climate action.
Action tied to the Pathways carbon capture and storage project that Carney says must be built for a pipeline to happen. Friday's agreement had no progress towards getting it done, but it did significantly roll back promised emissions reductions. The original plan had 22 tons of CO2 buried annually by 2030, now Ottawa only requiring 16 tons by 2045.
We're viewed as a country that is both an energy superpower and believes in addressing climate change. And so the ability to combine all of that is very, very attractive to Asian partners.
That prospective pipeline to sell oil to Asia still doesn't have a private company behind it, forcing Alberta to take the lead, with the Premier dismissing a potential separation referendum impacting finding a private partner.
I think that this will help a lot towards a group of folks who were disaffected because of economic issues.
A dissatisfaction that BC's Premier says shouldn't be rewarded, with David Eby slamming the deal for prioritizing the pipeline because of Alberta's separation threats, Colleen. A pipeline, Eby points out, that still has no route.
Mackenzie Gray in Ottawa. Thanks, Mac. Environmental groups and First Nations along BC's northern coast are joining that province's premier in opposing the project. The potential for an oil spill and the expansion of fossil fuel production at a time of climate change are key concerns. Eric Sorensen is gauging reaction to this major shift in Liberal priorities.
A deal to clear the way for a new pipeline may bridge the long-standing ideological divide between two governments, but other players are prepared to fight it. The most likely routes for a new pipeline from Alberta to the BC coast are along the existing Trans Mountain pipeline corridor, which Ottawa seems to favor, or a shorter northern route that Alberta prefers. An alliance of coastal First Nations says this is what they're trying to protect, the land, the water, as well as their culture and inherent rights. They will oppose a pipeline in the courts if necessary.
We've been here for, well over 14,000 years looking after our lands and waters and have a responsibility to care for that and pass it to the future generations.
To some, there is a climate irony. A region that is home to oil production and pipelines is also very susceptible to wildfires. Environmentalists say the agreement pushes into the future what's needed to address a growing climate crisis now.
There's going to be more greenhouse gas pollution going into the atmosphere, and that's going to cause more frequent and severe wildfires, floods, heat waves. It's a dismaying result in terms of climate policy in Canada, and all Canadians are going to eventually pay the price for this.
The agreement marks a distinct shift from the previous Liberal government. The Carney government now has a majority, squeezing out the recent influence of the political left. The NDP may have fewer voices, but its new leader believes Carney, while popular, is being short-sighted.
I hope that Canadians will start to revisit these plans. But politics isn't only about like a popularity contest and trying to get short-term bumps in the polls. Politics is about putting forward a vision for what kind of country we want to be.
Lewis and many environmentalists believe Canadians are nervous about Donald Trump and the economy, but will come around to the urgency on climate as global warming inevitably gets worse. Eric Sorensen, Global News, Toronto.
Okay, let's bring in our chief political correspondent now, David Eby. David, you've been talking to some Liberal MPs today. Is there a sense, given some of the opposition, that the Prime Minister is going to have to spend some political capital to push this pipeline project through?
Well, it's quite the opposite, Colleen. There's a sense among many Liberals that pushing this pipeline project will improve their political standing, that Liberals will earn political capital. And there's some polling data to support that. Recent polls from the likes of Leger, Angus Reid, Abacus, among others, all show the same thing. A majority of Canadians support a new Alberta-BC pipeline, and its majority support in every region of the country, including in BC and in Quebec. Even among NDP voters, 43% of New Democrats support versus 36% who oppose. Now, why is this? Donald Trump's tariff war, most of all, and most recently the war in Iran. Both of those issues have raised economic anxiety above environmental concerns in the minds of many voters. And a pipeline, in this case, is a proxy for jobs and economic independence. Now, there are some regional variations. Former Liberal Environment Minister Stephen Guilbeault is unhappy about this. He might even quit the Liberal caucus. Some BC Liberal MPs, Will Greaves in Victoria, Patrick Weiler in West Vancouver, to take two examples, might be anxious that their constituents will not like this. But by and large, Liberals see an electorate that no longer wants a Prime Minister who takes a dogmatic approach to energy and climate change. That's what some Liberals say Justin Trudeau did. And instead takes what they see as a pragmatic approach, the approach of Prime Minister Mark Carney. Now, the times and circumstances may indeed change in the future, and support for pipelines may diminish with those changes. But for now, Liberals believe they are in the sweet spot of public opinion when it comes to responsible pipeline development. Colleen.
David Eby in Ottawa. Thanks, David. Canada's top court has ruled intimate partner violence is a legal basis for pursuing civil damages. The decision stems from a case involving a woman who was subjected to physical and emotional abuse by her husband during 16 years of marriage. But as Jillian Piper reports, the ruling has wider implications and could pave the way for more survivors to seek justice.
It's a landmark ruling for abuse survivors across the country.
I think it truly can be groundbreaking.
In a rare move, Canada's top court has created a new legal pathway for survivors to sue for financial damages in civil court on the grounds of intimate partner violence, including coercive control.
It will allow victims of intimate partner violence to make claims not just for egregious acts of physical and psychological violence, but also tactics around isolation, manipulation.
It's a meaningful change for Emily Quint, who lived in a constant state of fear for years in a previous abusive relationship.
It actually validates the invisible forms of violence that survivors have been trying to describe for years.
While victims of abuse could already pursue assault and other charges in criminal court, the Supreme Court found those avenues were inadequate.
it was kind of like trying to fit a round peg into a square hole, and that those laws were simply insufficient to deal with the extremely complicated nature of relationships.
Intimate partner violence makes up about a third of all violent crimes reported to police in Canada, with more than 128,000 victims in 2024. But the problem is often underreported, meaning the actual numbers are likely even worse.
We're definitely seeing increases in intimate partner violence across the country, both in the numbers and the severity of violence.
Advocates hope the decision will pave the way for more survivors to seek justice.
This kind of opens things up and gives survivors more options for justice and more options for healing.
The legal system has often been criticized for re-traumatizing abuse survivors, and advocates are hoping this new recognition will be accompanied by increased resources and supports for those who come forward. Colleen?
Jillian Piper in Ottawa. Thanks, Jillian. A judge in Manhattan declared a mistrial today after the jury in Harvey Weinstein's rape trial was unable to reach a verdict. The disgraced Hollywood producer was charged with raping an aspiring actress in a hotel room in 2013. It's the second trial in the case after the first verdict was overturned and the second time a jury was unable to reach a verdict on this charge. Ontario's top court has dismissed an appeal by former fashion mogul Peter Nygard, upholding his sexual assault convictions and prison sentence. In 2023, Nygard was convicted on 4 counts of sexual assault and sentenced to 11 years in prison. The charges stemmed from allegations from multiple women who accused Nygard of sexually assaulting them at the company's Toronto headquarters from the 1980s to mid-2000s. Nygard argued his sentence was excessive and that the trial judge made several errors in law. But the appeal panel found only a, quote, harmless error from a clinical psychologist ruling that it didn't mislead the jury or cause a miscarriage of justice. America's arms deal for Taiwan in limbo. Coming up, how the U.S. president is waffling after a warning from China. As U.S. President Donald Trump returns to Washington from China, many unanswered questions remain about whether the United States will discontinue arms sales to Taiwan. It would appease China, which does not recognize Taiwan as an independent nation. But Taiwan says there is no debate. As Candace Cole reports from Washington, Trump appears to be weighing his next move very carefully.
On Taiwan, he feels very strongly. I made no commitment either way. We'll see what happens. What about the
U.S. President Donald Trump briefed reporters aboard Air Force One returning to Washington following his 2-day state visit to China, where Chinese President Xi Jinping threatened clashes between the two superpowers over the U.S.'s sale of arms to Taiwan, which China refuses to recognize as independent.
I'll make a determination over the next fairly short period.
You're not necessarily going to go ahead. It was your proposal.
Make a determination. I'm going to see. I have to speak to the person that right now is, you know who he is, that's running Taiwan.
That's on top of another $11 billion arms deal approved by Trump back in December, $1 billion more than what former President Biden previously approved.
So the Chinese were particularly irritated by the unprecedented $11.1 billion arms sale. They don't want to see one that is even higher, and obviously $14 billion would be an even bigger package.
But according to Taiwan, there is no debate over if Trump decides to sell arms because it's already covered by law. In a statement, Taiwan's foreign minister says Taiwan-US arms sales are not only a security commitment set forth in the Taiwan Relations Act, but a joint deterrence against regional threats as well. There's also the issue of sanctions on Chinese oil companies relying on Iranian oil, which Trump signaled he may be willing to lift.
Well, we talked about that, and I'm going to make a decision over the next few days. We did talk about that.
Analysts say lifting the sanctions would allow China to import Iranian oil without violating sanctions, though at a much higher price than the discount they're currently getting from Iran. Candace Cole, Global News, Washington.
Ahead, an explosive operation. How the Canadian military dive team out of Nova Scotia is demining the Black Sea. A day of mourning has been declared in Kyiv after a Russian missile attack flattened an apartment building yesterday. At least 24 people were killed in one of the deadliest aerial assaults on the capital since the start of the full-scale war. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky visited the site today and is vowing retribution against Russia. And Ukraine launched long-range drone attacks on several regions in Russia. An apartment building and an oil refinery were among the targets. At least 4 people were killed. Since the start of Russia's full-scale war, underwater mines have posed a major risk in the Black Sea. Finding and detonating those mines is the work of Royal Canadian dive teams. It's dangerous and requires extraordinary skill. A team from Halifax has been tasked with the job. Heidi Petracek spoke to one of the members.
That's what the controlled detonation of a mine looks like at sea. This one, off the coast of Latvia in the Baltic Sea, was the work of highly specialized Navy divers, clearing mines left over from the Second World War.
This was one of the most heavily mined regions in the world in the First and Second World War.
Neutralizing them takes precision, work NATO partners, including Canada, have been doing as part of Operation Open Spirit for more than a decade.
It is quite challenging and takes highly trained teams, one to search and two to dispose of.
You want to push on that one, Charlie?
Detection starts with a remotely operated underwater vehicle, which spots the mines and relays their locations. Then clearance divers take over. These are with Fleet Diving Unit Atlantic, based in Halifax.
It's far more complicated than simply blowing in place. If they are in close proximity of underwater critical infrastructure, underwater cabling or piping, that will then require a more complex task to be undertaken with a lifting and shifting of that ordnance.
On this mission, teams conducted at least 50 disposals. Removing that old ordnance is essential for safe navigation in the Baltic as NATO beefs up security there in response to threats from covert Russian vessels.
NATO is ready to respond to any such incident within 1 hour.
And then there's Russia's war on Ukraine, which is exactly where the Canadian dive team is heading next, to the Black Sea. It's been littered with mines ever since Russia's full-scale attack began, a war that continues, making the work even more treacherous.
You're having air threats, surface threats, so there's that to consider in addition to the ordnance.
When it comes to the obvious danger,
we train to do this, and the more you train, the lower the risks.
His answer may be simple, but the work is anything but. Heidi Petracek, Global News, Halifax.
Next, Seeing Red, Montreal's show of unity as Canada's last remaining hope for the Stanley Cup prepares for a critical game. Toronto's CN Tower awash in blue like a giant ice crystal, all part of Canadian superstar Drake's surprise midnight announcement that he was dropping not 1, but 3 new albums, including Iceman. Hundreds gathered at the base of the tower and thousands more across the city and online for the rumored event. This was the final PR stunt, which included a massive ice block in the city's downtown last month. Montreal has drawn first blood in the PWHL's Walter Cup final. The Victoire capped off a dramatic comeback, scoring in overtime to beat Ottawa after tying the game with just 2 seconds left. Game 2 in the best-of-5 series is tomorrow in Montreal. Well, it may be safe to say that we are all Montrealers this weekend. The Canadiens, the only Canadian team remaining in the Stanley Cup playoffs, lead the Buffalo Sabres in their series 3-2. As tomorrow's game could push them into the finals, many in Montreal, including our own Mike Armstrong, are planning watch parties.
Now, this is a city walking into the weekend with a spring in its step. At least that's my theory. Well, how about we test it out? How are we feeling?
Amazing, great. Could be better.
I think I'm feeling good. I think we've outplayed them most of the series. We've had a couple hiccups.
I'm having so much fun. Even though I might not be going downtown, I'm in my living room jumping with my husband and my 3 daughters.
We're feeling good. We're very great. Yeah, actually, game yesterday was great.
Spring fever this year is all about the Habs. There are the donuts in Bleu Blanc Rouge, people replacing stop signs with the name of the hot Habs goalie, And songs. Lots of songs.
Suzuki,
Let's go! Now, in a city with 100 years of hockey history, there are a couple of new traditions. The first one was planned, the torch ceremony at the beginning of home games. The second just happened, the sea of home red jerseys. You don't have to wear one, but if you want to fit in, you might want to.
The demigod has been unleashed!
Tony Marinaro hosts Habs podcasts in 2 languages. This season's roster, he says, stands out not only for its success on the ice.
The more people I talk to, everyone seems to feel the same way, that this is a very likable team.
I think it's a very cute team. It's like very family.
Yeah, they seem like a group of friends when they're playing a lot. Like they're very personable.
They have fun. We have fun. We play with them, and then we smile with them.
It's contagious.
Yes, it is.
Now, the Habs can still lose 2 straight, and the season could be over Monday night. But that might be okay this year. They've been that much fun to watch, and the future, being the youngest team in the league, is that bright. Mike Armstrong, Global News, Montreal.
Habs all the way. That is Global National for this Friday night. I'm Colleen Christie, and we're going to stay with the hockey theme for tonight's Your Canada, which is this hockey player sculpture made from welded steel chains in Hickson, BC. We love seeing Your Canada. Please email yours to globalnational@globalnews.ca. Thanks for watching. Hope you'll join us again tomorrow. Have a good night.